So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Desmond Situma. As always, welcome to Impactnomic. Today, we are talking about impact investing, and we are very, very happy to have a guest today who is an expert in the field and also leads an organization that supports entrepreneurship in Africa. Bjorn is the general manager of OVO. He will tell us briefly what OVO is. Bjorn, welcome to Impactnomic.
Okay, thank you, Desmond. So my name is Bjorn Macauter. I'm
Mhm.
the general manager of OVA, Ondernemers voor Ondernemers, Entrepreneurs for Entrepreneurs in English. And yeah, we are a non-profit organization, and our main mission is to support young African businesses, sustainable businesses, and we support them with access to coaching and
Mhm.
access to finance.
Wow, nice. And for the people who have been texting me asking for, hey, connect us in Europe, connect. Now is the connection. Yeah. So, what is impact investment? If we will just dive deep into it.
Mhm, mhm. Well, for us, it's of course it's investing with a financial return, but the financial return is not the most important. It's actually
Mhm.
creating impact. It
Yeah.
can be on the social side, but also, of course, more and more important is also the ecological impact, or at least avoiding negative impact on the climate and finding solutions
Mhm.
to address the whole climate issue,
Mhm.
which is very pressing, very urgent today. So at OVO, what we try to do is actually we try to balance the three aspects.
Yeah.
We invest in businesses, or we facilitate investment in businesses that are, of course, profitable.
Mhm.
That is the main issue to have a sustainable. That's the most important, to have a sustainable business
Yeah.
generating profit, of course, but also the social and the ecological impact we take into account to a high degree.
Okay. We didn't explain yet what OVO is. What does OVO mean?
Yeah. So OVO, it stands for it's an abbreviation for Ondernemers voor Ondernemers,
Mhm.
which is it's Dutch. In English, it's Entrepreneurs for Entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
So we are a non-profit organization based in Belgium. Um, and our main mission is to support sustainable entrepreneurship
Mhm.
in Africa.
Okay, interesting. Sustainable entrepreneurship. And you mentioned quite a number of things in terms of impact, social, economical, ecological. Could you give us an example of, let's say, an ecological impact?
Yeah, so let me give an example of one of the companies that we actually
Mhm.
uh, facilitated access to finance, to a loan. It's called a business called Ecoplastyle.
Mhm.
They're based in Uganda. As you know, in Africa, waste is a big issue.
Mhm.
They don't have waste collection and recycling like we are used to, especially in Belgium. In Belgium, we are experts in it.
Mhm.
In Africa, waste is still an issue. And Ecoplastal, they what they do, they collect waste.
Mhm.
They select the plastics out of the waste, and they make roof tiles out of the
Wow.
plastics. So
Mhm.
it's an interesting product also from an economical perspective, because
Mhm.
it's cheaper and than the classical roof tiles.
Mhm.
So it's more accessible for people with low income.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, of course, they also give an alternative. Well, they turn waste into a value.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great innovation that we see is happening more and more in Africa.
Interesting. That is a very, very good example of ecological impact. And so, how did Ecoplastil to get in touch with OVO? Like, how did they end up to cooperate with you?
Yeah, yeah. So the way that we operate is that while we are Belgium based, we don't have the ambition to build a structure, let's say, in Africa itself. So what we do is mainly engage with the local actors.
Yeah.
In Uganda, we have a structural partnership with a local incubator called Einstein Rising. Um,
Einstein Rising.
Einstein
Yeah.
Rising, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's really an Ugandan incubator.
Mhm.
and they help us to source the right companies, the right SMEs, and Ecoplastal was one of the companies that they already were in touch with, and they saw the opportunity for Ecoplastal to actually join the Sustain for Africa program that we run in Africa.
Indeed, I really like your approach because I think it portrays the importance of engaging local actors, especially in selecting entrepreneurs that you can support. Um, could you just paint a picture of this importance? Like, what are some of the pitfalls you avoid, especially for a Belgian organization
Mhm,
that wants to operate in an African market
mhm,
and
mhm.
uses local actors to, let's say, get to entrepreneurs or do some research here and there?
Yeah, yeah.
How important is that?
Well, maybe from an organizational perspective, for us, it's important that we don't create too much overhead,
Hmm.
and we also want to keep our flexibility, and that means, yeah, reaching out to other actors that are very complementary. Um, that's part of our business model. It's really like finding the right partners, bringing together the strengths of the different organizations, and together we can create, of course, more impact than each organization on itself. Of course, for us, the importance of having local actors is the knowledge of the local context.
Yeah.
We can try to gain that knowledge, but it's much more logical to work with people that are with their both feet
Hmm.
in the local society. So that means that they better understand the needs of the companies that we work with. They get the right feedback. For example, the past years, a lot of the loans that we helped to facilitate were became more expensive
Hmm.
because the loans that we provide are in euro. They
Yeah.
also need to they also need to pay back in euros. But of course, like in Rwanda, let's say, one of the countries that we operate, the past year, the currency lost a lot of value, the local currency compared to the euro. So that means that actually our loans got one third more expensive.
Hmm.
And that is feedback that always comes with a delay if we need to find out everything ourselves. But of course, the local people, they are in close contact with the companies. They also see what is happening because of course they are in the society. So that feedback reaches us much more quicker, which is important to act.
Indeed. Yeah, you've mentioned a very important point on the currency fluctuations, which I'm Kenyan, and a few months ago we had a similar problem where the Kenyan shilling was really dipping. Um, from an investor's point of view, how would you mitigate that? Would you, for example, consider like giving these loans in local currency?
Yeah, that's actually something that we're looking into now because we see the difficulties that it can create
Hmm.
by giving loans in euro. And of course, we always stress the social aspect of the loans that we facilitate,
Yeah.
because the interest rate, it's normally much lower than what the companies could get from the local banks. Uh, but of course, because of the currency fluctuation, the social aspect also is under pressure, and that's why we're now in investigating actually uh, the possibility of setting up more local funds.
Okay.
So in each country that we operate, it would make sense that we can help set up local funds or work with existing local funds, so that the loans can actually be given out in local currency.
Interesting.
For example, if I mean,
Hmm.
for example, we set up now in Malawi a first test, a pilot.
Okay.
Uh, Malawi is a new country. We actually got involved there because of an assignment to the Flemish government. But we actually identified a local incubator, the Mazuzu eHub. Muzuzu,
What's the name?
Muzuzu eHub.
Oh, Ahab. Okay.
Muzuzu is actually a secondary city in Malawi.
Mhm.
And we actually we're helping them now to set up a new fund
Okay.
because they really want to move from handing out grants to the companies they support to also giving loans.
Mhm.
Um, and because of the project we were in, we could provide them with a start capital.
Yeah.
Um, so what? So they are already in the process of setting up the legal structure to
Mhm.
become a microfinance institute, apply for a license.
Mhm.
Then the idea is to have a revolving loan fund locally.
Okay.
So it's more like the OVO acceleration fund that we have. It's also a
Mhm.
revolving loan fund, so it's will more or less duplicate it,
Mhm.
but then locally, but also managed by the owned and managed by the Muzuzu eHub. So the only thing we do is actually provide the capital,
Yeah.
do the capacity building, and then it's up to them.
Mhm.
And of course, we stay on board also to advise them. But the idea is that they own it.
Yeah.
So it's also empowering the local people because now the loans that we do, they're always coming from Europe.
Mhm.
The money goes back to Europe, and I think it makes much more sense if we can actually set up something locally so that you
Mhm.
can create, while you strengthen the local ecosystem.
Yeah. Good point. I was recently in a session called Future Africa. It was more on sustainable finance between the continent of Africa and Europe. And we were, as young people, we had a proposition for these more international lenders, IMF, the European Investment Bank, and others, that it will make sense if they wanted to help African countries to reinvest interest locally,
Mm-hmm.
so that at least the money doesn't fly out immediately when paying the loans. And I see the same approach with what you've just explained. But before I go into the acceleration fund and other OVO tools, you Mzuzu are establishing a loaning facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, I see a movement from grants to loans.
Mm-hmm.
So between these two, between loans and grants, which ones are more effective?
I think it all depends on the stage that a company is in.
Hmm.
If you're really if you only have an idea and you want to set up a company, then grants can make sense. Because of course there is no business yet, so you need to invest some money, and in that stage you cannot actually have the burden of a loan on your shoulders, I think. But of course, as soon as you grow the business, you need to move to loans.
Yeah.
Well, of course, a lot of companies are only interested in grants, and I can understand. It's easier just
Hmm.
to accept money and no strings attached.
Yeah.
But I think as if you are an entrepreneur and you're really ambitious,
Mhm.
at a certain time you really need to attract external money to
Mhm.
grow your business, to invest in your business. So the loans that we give companies access to, so it's not only the money, yeah? So it's always comes also with coaching.
Mhm.
But for us, it's actually more also make the businesses bankable. They don't get any. They cannot access loans from local banks because they don't have the right track record. They don't. They cannot give the right collateral and so on. So there are conditions that local banks demand that the companies
Mhm.
that we operate, that we work with, they cannot. They cannot apply for loans because of these conditions. But of course, that is what we see as their final aim, also to
Mhm.
help them to become bankable, so that in a few years' time, they really can access the local banks
Mhm.
because they have good revenues, good profit, and they can
Yeah.
convince the banks to give good interest rate.
Okay, interesting. And just tell me more about the finance tools that OVO has, because I heard you mention the acceleration fund, for example. Are there any other?
Well, just to be clear, so Ovo itself, we don't give loans.
Okay.
So as an organization, we don't give loans ourselves, but we set up the Ovo Acceleration Fund. It's
Yeah.
actually run by a separate nonprofit organization, a separate legal structure, and of course, we are very much aligned. The two organizations very much linked. But the so we have the Ovo Acceleration Fund, which we mainly try to attract donations from Belgian companies.
Yeah.
These donations will go into the fund, and then it's a revolving loan fund. So the fund actually trans turns the turns the donations into loans.
Okay.
Once so the when the companies need to repay the capital and the interest goes back into the fund, so it can help future companies with new loans. But we always match the Ovo Acceleration Fund with contributions of business angels, and these are mainly individuals, mainly Belgian people, but since 1 or 2 years, we also have a group of investors from Holland. And so and the role that Ovo plays, we actually we set up a sort of a consortium, a syndicate. It's syndicate, it are syndicated loans. So we bring together the different uh, the different streams of money.
Okay.
So that we can give the right amount for a business to grow.
Okay. Yeah.
But by combining the two, you actually we lower the risk of the business angels. And we also give an opportunity to companies to make this kind of contributions, because more and more companies actually they also like to have direct impact on entrepreneurship. But for a company, it's difficult to give out to give a loan
Yeah.
to an African entrepreneur because their shareholders will start asking questions because okay, what
Yeah.
is this in our? Why is this on our balance sheet? What does it have to do with the own operations?
Yeah.
So they mainly prefer to just give a donation. With the Over Acceleration Fund, they like the idea of giving loans instead of grants. So with the Over Acceleration Fund, they can actually contribute to the loans without making things too complicated for themselves.
Yeah.
If you understand, maybe it's a
No, no,
it's a
I
difficult
get you.
question.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of things. But one interesting thing you mentioned is angel investors. Well, we know what an angel investor is, but if there was an entrepreneur who is watching and doesn't know what an angel investor is, what is it, or who is it?
For us, the people that we engage, these are people that actually they are aware of the risk, because we work with still young companies.
Yeah.
So they see the potential. They see the potential not only to grow the business, but of course also to create impact, and the most direct effect of that could be creating jobs. I think Africa needs a lot of jobs, and of course companies that grow will create new job opportunities. So the people that actually that contribute to the loans, what we call business angels, and they know the risk, but they see the potential, they see the impact that they can generate. But in the meantime, they also get some financial return.
Okay.
But I think, and that is especially important for people that would like to be involved in what we do, is the financial return is not the main driver. Because of the risk, you always have to, let's say, the feedback that we get from a lot of people that are involved as a business angel, they say like, okay, for me it's more like an alternative to giving a grant, because if I give a grant, it will only help one business. If I give a loan, and let's hope they pay back the loan, I can reuse that money to give new loans to other businesses. So for them, it's like it's in the back of their heads, they take into account that this money could be at risk. But of course, if everything goes well, it comes back and they can reuse it.
Wow. Um, I'm an African diaspora in Belgium. I'm quite involved in impact investing. Um, but you lead an organization that is very, very active in this. So, how do you see the role of African diaspora in terms of investing back home in the context of impact investing?
Yeah, they definitely can play an important role. Our desire, when I look at our organization, is really to get more involvement from African diaspora, because of course they could be the perfect link between the companies that we support and the volunteers, because we work with we work with a lot of volunteers. For the moment, I think we have about 120, 140 volunteers that are involved. They the biggest, the largest group of these volunteers, they help with the coaching of the businesses. Um, but to be honest, we still have a big population of white people that do the coaching, and of course, we would like to have more diversity, because Europe and Africa, there are differences in the culture, obviously, and I think African diaspora can play a role in that, because they have a good understanding of both worlds, both continents. So that means that they can also be a bridge between, let's say, the group of coaches that we have today and the businesses, because of course the people that the volunteers that we work with, they all, most of them actually have a good understanding of private sector, and they know how to run a business. So that is experience that is quite valuable. But of course yeah, sometimes, well, not sometimes, you always have to make the translation to the local context, and I think African diaspora could really be a good intermediate in that. Yeah. And maybe to mention, we are actually for the moment involved in a project. It is run by IOM, International Organization for Migration, Belgium, Luxembourg. And one of the one of the goals of the project is actually to train more people from the African diaspora to become a business angel, because it would also make sense to, as an alternative to just sending remittances to the home country. This could be an alternative. Instead of just sending money, they can invest in their home country, and also in this way have a big impact. But something that I have to admit, we as OVO, uh, what we were not aware of was that a lot of people actually don't know the concept of being a business angel. What is a business angel? How can you be?
That's why I was asking
Yeah,
you the
yeah.
question.
And so this training is really this training is helping them, like, okay, what does it mean? How do you do your research? What kind of businesses do you want to invest in? So it's really starting from scratch. And hopefully some of these people can also make an investment in one of the businesses that we will propose.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that to be a business angel, you don't have to be a millionaire.
No, definitely not. No.
Yeah, you don't have to be a millionaire because it's more of you. Like many angel investors combined,
Hmm.
they can support a lot of entrepreneurs together.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so someone doesn't have to have billions or millions.
Now, the minimum amount that we expect when you want to also be part of the group of investors is about 5,000 euros.
5,000.
And okay, it's not for everybody, but we also have to look at it from let's say an administrative point of view. So if we otherwise the groups will become too big, because we do loans to maximum 50,000 euros. But it's maybe also important to say is that we really focus on small businesses. So the ones that want to grow their business and to grow to 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 realize the growth, they need an investment between 5,000 and 50,000 euros. Um, in the sector, they call it missing middle. Well, it's actually the lower side of the missing middle, because the missing middle is it's much bigger. But they call it the missing middle because yeah, local banks are not interested, like I said before, because yeah,
The risk.
the risk too risky, too uncertain, but also impact investors. It's a growing sector, and a lot of money is going into the sector. But also the real impact investors, they don't look at businesses that need like 50,000 euros, because of course, if you need to do the due diligence, if you need to do your research, if it's a business that needs like 2 million euros or only 20,000 euros, the work is the same.
Yeah.
And
We
a
spend
lot
a
of the
lot.
and a lot of the organizations, they work with fees, because they also
Uh-huh.
need to pay their costs. So in that way, it makes more sense to focus on businesses that need like 2 million.
Yeah, I see.
But that means that a lot of SMEs, African SMEs, actually, yeah, they don't have access to finance, and that is really one of the most pressing issues in Africa, why companies are not able to grow in size.
Yeah. One thing that I like about Obo is the coaching that you do. And of course, combining the finance part with the coaching, I think that combination is very, very important. And sometimes entrepreneurs focus on the money itself, the loan or the grant. But I think coaching is equally important. But from your experience, how have you seen this evolution in terms of the significance of coaching vis-a-vis the money?
Yeah, yeah.
Because are there any situations where you've coached, let's say you coach an entrepreneur, and in the end they realize perhaps maybe they don't need the money, or something like that?
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, we definitely had cases like that. And it's also the advice that we always give. If you can if you can finance the growth of your company yourself by the profit that you generate,
Mhm.
you don't need a loan. And if you don't need a loan, that's better, of course, because a loan always comes with obligations. It is a burden. You need to pay back, so it is a burden. So if you can do it without, that's better, and that's something that we will also advise. That's I think that's also, we are a non-profit organization, so we are not in it to make profit. So if we see that they actually don't need a loan, we will definitely tell them and advise them not to go for a loan. We also had well, we had some cases like that. We even had, like, for example, an organization, um, with a lot of members. And in the end, they realized, like, okay, if each member would contribute a small amount, we have the money that we need to make an investment.
Yeah.
So they prefer that scenario, which again, it makes perfectly sense. So we applauded it. So but indeed, but in what we see is that most businesses actually, they join our program because they need money.
Yeah.
But the feedback that we get is that they often appreciate more, or at least they appreciate a lot of the coaching. So they, where they actually in the first place were not interested in the coaching, they really saw the value afterwards. Because and I think that's the difference between with a lot of organizations, because what we do is not, it's not unique. But I think what really, what our added value is, that we work with experienced businessmen and businesswomen. So it's very hands-on. At every business that we select, they actually get a dedicated coach, or even more than one coach. So it's really hands-on. It's one-on-one. So and so that means that it's very practical.
Yeah.
And that's also the feedback that we often get, because a lot of the companies that we work with, they already were in other programs, and they say, like, okay, but this was classroom style learning, so it's very theoretical. And as we all know, is the most difficult is that you learn something at school and then you come at home and then you need to apply it to your own
Practice.
situation, and then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how do I do it? So, and that's where we actually, that is where we put the focus on
Okay.
how to apply it on your own business.
Own business. Indeed. Good. Let me switch gears a bit to the policy side. The EU recently passed the Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, Reporting Directive, and there is so many other policies going on in the EU about sustainability for businesses and so on and so forth. But as a person in from an impact investing angle, do you see a lot of support from the Commission, for example? Not necessarily policy, but also resources.
You mean the European Commission?
Yes, or other EU institutions.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, for us, Europe is, well, the European Union is it's like a fortress.
Okay.
It is, and that's also the feedback that I got from other organizations. As a
Mhm,
small player, because we're still a small organization, it's very difficult to access
mhm,
the European Union. So what we're trying to do now is reach out more to organizations that already are collaborating with the European institutions.
mhm.
Um, and in that way, we hope indeed also to access some of the support that
Yeah.
they can give. But today we have actually there are not so many. Well, there are actually no linkages with the European level.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm asking this because I know the development cooperation is really moving towards trade and private sector development. And I think if they focused on supporting organizations like OVO, it will make more sense because you are really, really active on the ground. And sometimes I see a lot of resources directed to organizations that maybe civil society organizations
Mm-hmm.
that are more active in other areas, not necessarily in entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a misdirection in terms of policy, but also in practically in terms of channeling resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's something you see as well.
Yeah, definitely, and
Mhm,
I can only agree. We
mhm,
see the same, and we're very happy that entrepreneurship is
mhm,
becoming more and more important, also on the international level.
mhm,
But indeed, it seems like they don't always know how to actually implement it.
mhm,
And like you mentioned, I also see NGOs getting money to work on private sector development, while it's not really their cup of tea.
mhm,
And it's a pity because we, but also other organizations, there's a lot of organizations out there that actually that are experienced in private sector development. So I
mhm,
think for the European Union, it's important to engage them more, and not only work with the traditional partners. And I think, and also in this way, we also work with Belgian NGOs.
mhm,
And it's also capacity building on we learn from each other. We learn
mhm,
from the NGOs the way that they operate, because of course they are very much embedded in the local context.
mhm,
They know how to interact with the local communities. On the other hand, they are less experienced in supporting entrepreneurs,
mhm.
and that's what they can learn from us. So I think it's learning from each other, but yeah, also for the European Union, they should, maybe they need to do a new stakeholder assessment and see
Okay.
which organizations are more
Yeah,
suitable to work on private sector
yeah,
development.
yeah. If you met DG Intpa today, I don't know who will be the new one. I think the current one is Kunduns.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you met DG Intpa, what would you tell him or her?
Um, well, I think one of the issues that we see is the administration.
Mm-hmm,
If you get support from the European Union,
mm-hmm,
it comes with a lot of administrative obligations,
mm-hmm,
which of course makes sense, but I think they make things too complicated. That's also the reason why, okay, we miss the linkages today, but I think on the other hand, also as an organization, we are too small, because that's also what I hear from other organizations.
Mhm.
If you get European money, it comes with it with a lot of obligations on
Mhm.
reporting and yeah, cost declaration. So you already have to have a certain size as an organization
Mhm.
to be able to master that.
Yeah.
And so maybe they should try to find a way to
Mhm.
become more, um, yeah, to reduce some of the red tape that is today
Mhm.
in practice.
To be more accommodative.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I need to drink water. Where is my glass? Uh, yeah, yeah. All right, Bjorn. Um, OVO has been in operation for how many years? Right now?
Oh, already 24. 24.
That's
We started in 2000,
Mhm.
and since then, of course, um, we evolved, but yeah, we're already 24 years in
Yeah.
business.
Okay, interesting. For this 24 years, if you were to summarize the impact that OVO has achieved up to now, briefly, please explain to us what that would look like.
Yeah. Well, let me maybe go back to why OVO was actually founded.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2000, the idea was that there was need for an organization that would actually make the bridge between the private sector in Belgium
Mm-hmm.
and the sector development cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you will know, is that these are two different sectors, and these two sectors, they speak their own language,
Mm-hmm.
and there have been some difficulties in understanding each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it was a professor from uh, a school in Brussels, and then also the former governor of the national bank. They decided, like, okay, we need to create a bridge,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of business owners from Belgian companies that actually want to contribute
Mm-hmm.
to the development sector.
Oh.
Yeah, but they are not really used to interacting with NGOs,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we work. That's why OVO was actually founded to be, let's say, the intermediate
Okay.
that would make sure that these relationships
Mm-hmm.
could take off, and also and also could keep going.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and I think today that's an important one. We in the past 24 years, we made sure that money from the private sector would actually go to NGOs, so that this money could be used to work
Mm-hmm.
on projects in not only Africa. We started also in working in we also presented projects from Latin America,
Mm-hmm.
Asia, but today the main focus is Africa. It's only in 2014 that we did a first experiment with direct support to
Mm-hmm.
African SMEs. And in the meantime, and throughout the years, we actually, yeah, we created our own program.
Mm-hmm.
We grew our network of business angels. We set up the OVA Acceleration Fund. Just to give you an idea, since we created Sustain for Africa, that's our acceleration program,
Sustek, what does it
Sustainable
mean?
Technology for Africa,
Ah, okay. Yeah.
because we see technology as an important enabler for development, but of
Mm-hmm.
course it needs to be sustainable technology.
Yeah.
Um, so we created that program in 2018. So it's since 2018 that we also do coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, we have coached like more than 200 businesses
Mm-hmm.
in different African countries. We invested in more than 60 businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, the total amount that we invested so far is 2.5 million euros.
Wow.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's and we had it, on average, we invest like half a million euros a year. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, we are also ambitious, so we really want to double that
Yeah.
at least, so that we can invest like 1 million or facilitate investments for at least 1 million a year.
Okay, interesting. And to aspiring entrepreneurs in Africa, what tips would you give them, especially those who are perhaps thinking of raising funds or looking for coaching and they would maybe like to apply for support from over?
Yeah.
Are there any tips that you could give to them?
Well, yeah, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be very persistent. It's not easy. You have a lot of challenges that you
Mm,
need to encounter. Um, but having a coach or a mentor,
mhm,
it's that is really something. I I was lucky to actually to have a mentor myself last year.
mhm,
I and I could really experience the value of it. The fact
mm,
that you have somebody you can talk to when you have challenges, when you have problems, or when you need some new ideas,
mm,
that's really valuable. Um, so yeah, reach out to people. Don't stay on your own island. That's something that I've learned also. It's important to talk to other people, to interact with other people.
mhm.
Your team is very important.
Yeah.
That's maybe one of the biggest challenges that we see with the companies that we work with,
Mhm.
building the right team.
Yep.
Because I think good business ideas, you can find them everywhere,
Mhm.
especially now with artificial intelligence.
Yes.
You can find good business ideas. That's not a problem, but you need to have the right mindset. You really need to be, yeah, very dedicated to your business. It's you need to be passionate. I think, yeah, now with the Olympic Games, you can compare it with all these
Mhm.
people participating in the Olympic Games. You don't get there if you don't have the right passion, because
Yeah.
you yeah, the way the trajectory to reach
Mhm.
the Olympic Games, it's quite difficult.
It's
Right?
tough.
It's very tough, and
Mhm.
I think for an entrepreneur, it's more or less the same. It's you have a lot
Mhm.
of challenges. Of course, you encounter a lot of problems, but yeah, it's having the right energy to keep
Mhm.
going and to find the right solutions, and yeah, like I said, building your team is quite important in that, because
Yeah.
it's the team, the people behind the project, behind the business, that make the difference, and
Mhm.
you cannot do it all on your own. You really need to have people that you can trust, that are very complementary to yourself.
Yeah.
For example, one of the things that we often see is that financial management, um, a lot of companies, and that's not only in Africa, that's
Mhm.
also in Europe, young companies, they don't always understand the importance of financial management.
Mhm.
Um, and that's something that it's actually one of the obligations. If you want to access a loan through OVO,
Yeah.
then we say, okay, or you need to have somebody in your team that is really an expert in financial management, or you have to engage another company that can help
Mhm.
you with that. But it is also important, because it's more like your compass.
Yeah.
If you want to know where you want to go to in the future, and that means also having a good understanding of your numbers.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's so don't see it only as an extra cost. That's what we see. That
Mhm.
many companies, they think like, okay, it's wasted money,
Yeah.
but in the end, it's yeah,
It pays off.
it pays off, and it's very very important. Yeah.
Well, I think I agree. Financial literacy, especially with management, is very, very important. And that's for entrepreneurs. How about other impact investors or angel investors who might wish to work with OVO? Any message to them?
I can only say, if you are interested in supporting African businesses and create the jobs that are needed, just reach out, and we can see how we can collaborate. We are always in need of people that are willing to put money in this kind of businesses. So let's say what we do is actually we do the selection, we prepare them, we make the businesses investment ready,
Mhm.
and then then it's money time, of course. They have a plan to grow their business, but it always, most of the time, it there is also a financial need to grow the business. So this is definitely something where people can help us, by engaging with OVO. Um, so just reach out. You can reach out through the website, and learn more about the way that we operate. So it's ovo.be,
Mhm.
and of course, there you can also find the contacts of myself and my colleagues, so that you can also reach out directly.
Interesting. I think a lot of people watching are going to Google
Perfect.
ovo.b. Then I hope a lot of them will reach out to support the work Ovo is doing. It's really incredible because finding a small business, giving them coaching, then supporting them financially, it's very, very important. And I think something we didn't go so much into is I have been following Ovo for quite some time, and I realized that beyond the amount that Ovo gives, the coaching and the money, once a business has received an Ovo loan, it's it's provided like a baseline or a platform for access to other resources out there,
Definitely. Yeah.
because other financials also see that the value in the business, they see credibility in the business, and that way the potential of growth is really multiplied.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's indeed. We're also always looking for partners on the, let's say, our exit.
Mhm.
Um, so as you mentioned, we help companies grow, and if they are successful, they will have new financial needs to further grow their business. Um, after, well, we are always open to giving a second loan, and then we can go to amounts of 150,000 euros. But we're also always looking for partners that could take over some of the projects that we have
Mhm.
supported and are successful. So
Yeah.
we already interact, and align with some of the organizations,
Mhm.
uh, because also everybody is looking, even if you only do bigger amounts, everybody's looking for the right companies to invest in.
Yeah.
And if we can deliver a company that already has been successful in paying back a loan,
Mhm.
they reached the targets during the years, that we supported them. That gives a lot of confidence, of course, for new investors
Mhm.
to come with bigger amounts. And I think that's a way that we need to align more. There are a lot of organizations that are active in this sector,
Mhm.
but what we see is that there is not enough collaboration between the different organizations. Everybody's is working next to each other,
Mhm.
and I think we definitely need to connect more, and in that way, yeah,
Mm.
support the businesses that are really ambitious, and can be successful.
Indeed. Indeed. Okay, Bjorn, we will end our conversation there. Thank you so much for your contributions.
You're welcome.
I hope we will have time to have another conversation in future because
Definitely.
I know Ovo is quite a big organization. There's so much to talk about. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ciao.